So pretty much very simple engine derived from the 350 small block. They took the small block Chevy cut cylinders 1 and 6 off, slapped the block together, and boom, that's how the 4.3 was born. Now, this is a throttle body injected a 4.3. This is the L35 RPO code. The 200 horsepower rated 1 and 260 pound-feet of torque, or foot-pounds I should say. Now some things that I've come to really hate about this engine, or things like this I deliver here. So done a little research, and over time, if we ever come across that GM line, apparently a lot of Chevys get it. With this case, it's not the alternator. Chances are if you ever have the engine running, you can take a screwdriver, and if you stick it right here on this bracket where the other thread from the bearing goes into end. Listen, if you can hear the whining or air, then you know it's the idler pulley. Another thing is this bypass hose here. This one, it'll dry and crack, and then a lot of times it'll clog. I just did a timing chain water pump in time and cover. Now, with that stuff, it was very simple. You pull the front, you pull the time to cover off, which was stupid because 97 and up they took rid of the steel timing cover off, and then they threw a composite one on there which you had to replace upon removal. Corona GM, there were several TSPs for this engine because of people coming into the dealership and complaining of the engine's lacking power. Now, that I believe was caused by there's a distributor issue. I believe that's what it was. Now another thing that it's commonly known to go wrong in these is throttle body ejected from the years 98. 2004, you probably end up running a vacuum leak from this little O-ring that's underneath this bonnet. You take the wing nut off of here, and you pop this up underneath here, or inside of the bonnet. If you take it off, you look inside, there's an O-ring. A lot of times in the heat cycles, depending on where you live and how hot the engine's running, the O-ring will actually shrink, and it'll crack. You can end up running it back. And now another thing was the distributor. A lot of times, if you go to replace this distributor, these ones, the originals, that the cap was very sensitive to moisture. A lot of times it would go bad just because of some spray from rain catch hit the back of the firewall and will run inside their water, gets inside the cap in the fries. Now you got to replace the distributor, you put it in, and if you bend the shim or you do anything to mess up the shim that holds it, it'll throw the P1345 code, which is pretty much crankshaft camshaft correlation fault, meaning hey, there's triggers moving around, and it's the technion which is throwing that trouble code P449. The trouble code pretty much means you've got to replace the evap solenoid. That's just the easiest way to get rid of it. You know, you can get that solenoid for less than $20 depending where you go. AC Delco definitely is the recommended replacement brand for these. Now, when you replace it, it may throw 446, which accordingly across multiple forums and through several service manuals for 46. Then take a new gas cap and put it on as the old one. Apparently with the S10 series pickups, so the gas cap goes bad. Next thing, which is this is a plus, here is the ignition coil. The ignition coil, there's all new one, so you don't have to worry about it like the 5.3. You got 8 of them, $40 or so, especially if you're going performance of SD. You get MSD or Excel, and this brand AutoZone. In advance, they do carry this exact style, and they do have MSD, and acceptors were trashed when they first came out, because if you had the multi-port fuel injection, which is what this one is, I believe the central port fuel injection as well, the injectors that GM put in here, they were garbage. A lot of times they would break, they crack, and boom, that's it, getting gas everywhere. Or use something as simple as getting bad gas clogs and injector boom jams. That nope, we designed it to where you have to replace it, so that's more money in our pocket. So there you have it, you can't get the Tamrax injectors. Personally, I wouldn't recommend it, just because if I'm gonna do anything that's very vital to the engine and it's no drivability, I definitely would go IC Delco. You can pick it up for like $240 or so, but that's the updated injector system, which is, because these are spider injections, the poppets. that go into each of the intake metal intakes manifold. They're removable, so if one gets clogged you can take it off, place it with another. Now, the thermostats were on top of the engine. It's very simple to remove and replace. If you ran into a problem intake manifold, you can swap them out with multiple. You can even get, so yeah, that's pretty much all there is to these. 4.3 is here. Now you come down to the time and cover here down, which sits behind the water pump. You place it, just be careful to when you set it back in, because the oil pan gasket, a half moon, that goes right under the crank, there's a little lip, like I was saying before, there's a little lip that sits on the timing cover. When you go to put the time and cover in, that gasket sometimes get pushed and throw the gasket off, and then when you drive, especially if you're going downhill, oil starts spilling all over the front of the block. The easiest way to do that is on each side of the old pan there's 3 bolts. I believe they're 13mm bolts. You just unbolt those first 3 accordingly, and you can move the pan down a little bit, slide the timing cover on, and bolt the pan right back up. Intakes with these cool things were, if you had the Vortec one, they made special Vortec intakes for these 4.3 engines. Headers, yeah, you can get headers though. They have JBA headers. They got long tube headers for this engine. They got, it was pretty much, if you go back to looking at the 4.3 history, there was the 4.3, which was turbo, and the GMC Cyclone, and the GMC Typhoon. So yeah, you can athlete run headers. That's a pretty neat, unique feature about these. Things like common things that are known to go bad: AC compressor, alternator right on top of the engine. You don't have to open the hood and dig way down inside the engine. Be like, hey, where the heck's the old header? So they still use this engine to this day. It's not manufactured by GM anymore. They discontinued it as of 2014. It's actually manufactured with a different displacement rating, and it is a marine application built by Mare Cruiser. They pretty much bought their prints and rights to this engine and did a little tweaking with it.